It's your birthday. It's my birthday. It's everybody's birthday. The WNBA is here. Locked on Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That music always makes me feel like dancing, but especially today. I am Howard Megdal, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, editor and founder of The Next. You can, of course, follow our work at Locked On Women's Basketball by subscribing each and every weekday. Thank you for making us your first listen. You can hear us wherever podcasts are found. You can follow the great work being done by our incredible staff at The Next, thenexthoops.com. Follow us online at The Next Hoops on Instagram or Twitter. Make sure that you are following all the work that is being done covering this game that we all love. It's here, you guys. It is here. The WNBA schedule starts 7 p.m. tonight. I'm using Eastern Standard Time because, of course, that is the only time zone. I will fight you if you disagree with me. Fever versus Mystics, 7 p.m. Sparks versus Sky, the defending champs, back out there, 8 p.m. Aces versus Mercury, 10 p.m. And the Lynx against the Storm out in Seattle, also at 10 p.m. Great matchups right away. Liberty Suns tomorrow at 6. Dream versus the Winds tomorrow at 8. I hope you're ready. If you've been listening to the show, if you've been reading us over at The Next, you're ready. I'm ready. I have been anticipating this for a very, very long time. So we'll get into it in some detail, but later on in the show, we're going to have Derek Fisher talking about the importance of Chiney Ogwumike. I wrote a piece about it actually over at Forbes, just posted this afternoon, and a whole host of other issues. Sparks set their final rosters. Some fascinating choices about who's there, who's not. Some tough choices. Some tough choices across this league. You know, this league is filled with 11 women, 12 women rosters. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. 144 isn't enough, and this league doesn't employ 144 players. Not with the salary cap forcing a lot of teams to carry 11. Chiney Ogwumike, who I mentioned before, she talked about the need for a G League. I've talked about this too. Having people at home, having people in the United States ready to come, having played regular basketball, it matters. Having an injured list so that you don't have to cut players, but you can have a true roster reflecting players who have bought in, who are in your practice, who are part of your system. It matters. Having 15 instead of 12. Ask any NBA team why they moved from 12 to 15. When I was growing up, there were 12 players on an NBA roster. There's a reason it got bigger. It's a net win for everyone involved. So I'm going to keep banging this drum. We're going to keep talking about it. But let's talk about the Sparks in particular. And the Sparks roster, it's technically 13 because they have some contracts temporarily suspended. This smart use of the roster. The Sparks understand, and this is from Fisher on down to his brain trust, that there is value to having depth, especially in this league, especially in this season. 36 games, most we've ever had. Last game of the regular season, August 14th, because of the FIBA World Cup and having to squeeze it in there. Depth's going to matter. So I just want to take it one by one here. I'm going to start with Liz Cambage, and the expectations are that Liz is starting at the center position, that she is a centerpiece to this offense, that a team that was 12th in the league in offensive efficiency, I mean, I don't mean to oversimplify it, but this single game all-time scoring leader, she scored 53. Like, granted, it was against a New York Liberty team that did not defend as fully as you might want, but just the same, 53 is 53. So that shouldn't matter. Next up is Lexie Brown. And I am extremely team Lexie Brown. We've had her on this program back when we were weekly. Lexie Brown, a plus defender, big time with steals, terrific shooter, just a veteran combo guard presence who I hope gets minutes, gets into a rhythm. Chennedy Carter is as exciting a player as you're going to watch in the WNBA. And she got a fresh start and she got an opportunity. Olivia Nelson-Ododa, here's how it was described to me by one person familiar. She has a chance to be a better pro than she was a collegiate player. She can effectively be a Brianna Turner type. That's really interesting. And there's not a lot of pressure on her either, because you got Liz, because you got Shanae, because you've got Nneka Ogwumike. Because Jasmine Walker has a chance to be a prototype stretch four. It's going to be interesting to see what she does. Certainly she comes out of a very smart system. Very curious to see how she does moving forward. Rae Burrell, the talent is off the charts. Can she stay healthy? Rae Burrell was a lottery pick if she had stayed healthy in her final year in college. Chennedy Ogwumike is doing it all. She is on ESPN. She's going to continue to be on NBA Today. And she's going to play in the WNBA at the same time. She matters. I want you to hear what Derek Fisher has to say about her, because it extends beyond what kind of player she is. But she is a damn good basketball player. We get so caught up, and rightly so, I understand it, in Chennedy Ogwumike, the figure, and Chennedy Ogwumike, the person, we'll talk about 50 years from now, because she's paved the way for a lot who have come after her. But Chennedy Ogwumike was a top overall pick. She's a multi-time all-star. I saw her hit her first three-point shot. It was at the Westchester County Center, but it still counts. That was a WNBA arena then, although mercifully not anymore. Chennedy Ogwumike matters, and it's going to be fascinating to see how she was used. And let's just point out, Amanda Zahui is not on this roster. The Sparks elected to suspend her for the season. Her overseas commitments were going to mean she came in late. And Derek will talk a little bit more about that in the back and forth. But the thing to keep in mind is Amanda Zahui would be necessary. It wouldn't have been able to make that choice if not for understanding you can get more minutes out of Chennedy Ogwumike. Brittany Sykes, I've had the pleasure of covering her since she was at Syracuse, has overcome multiple ACL tears. Just one of the great lockdown defenders among perimeter players. Christy Tolliver will be here soon after her coaching commitments in the NBA are finished for the year. Brings leadership, brings a championship pedigree. Jordan Canada, a change of pace guard. Sparks will play fast if they can. Amy Atwell, just a knockdown shooter. Can't wait to see her out of Hawaii. Nneka Ogwumike, what can you say? Former MVP. An opportunity again to go out further, spacing for Liz. Nneka has a season where she once shot 61% from three-point range in a season in the year she won MVP. Katie Lou Samuelson, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Do not sleep on Katie Lou, a lottery pick who has been shuttled from team to team. But Katie Lou Samuelson has all-star ceiling as far as I'm concerned. And let me just tell you how much Derek Fisher loves Jasmine Walker. So she's healthy. So she's here. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see what they do with their entire rotation. So we're going to be back to talk directly with Derek Fisher about this. But first, we have to talk about Built Bar. Have you guys ever suffered from FOMO? I have. I've never said the word out loud before. But I've got FOBO. No, it's FOMBO. It's FOMBO. Fear of missing Built Bar out. I've got them. They're on their way. I've got the email that came today. They've shipped. They're coming. The puffs. Protein infused marshmallow. 140 calories, 4 grams net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. I can't wait till it's here. I wish I had a Built Bar right now. If you have FOMBO, again, not a legal term, kind of one I made up, go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Do what my mom told me to do. I'm coming home last weekend from broadcasting. Go get Built Bars, she said. Make sure you have them on hand. So that's what I've done. They'll be here soon. In the meantime, FOMBO. You don't want FOMBO? Go do what I said and tell them Grandma Myrna sent you. So here's Derek Fisher. Enjoy what he had to say. Really interesting man who really clearly gets it, understands the WNBA in a broader sense. And then we'll be back to wrap it up, talk a little bit about expectations for the season. I am Howard Megdal, and this is Locked On Women's Basketball.
Alrighty, we will get started with questions from Roz. Roz, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, Russ. I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm well, excited for the season, and congrats on getting to this point. Just wanted to start it off with a foundational question about a team where there's a lot of new. What was the characteristics, the identity of the types of players you wanted to keep and the identity of the type of play and style, how that all connects into the type of play and style you want to see this season?
We I think over the last, couple years as we have kind of transitioned into, kind of a new era of Sparks basketball, we've wanted to try and increase the versatility of our roster and having the ability to match up with different teams and really being able to also become more effective and efficiently on the offensive end, as we move forward to kind of support the defense that we've been able to play over the last few years. Those are some of the priorities that, we went after this offseason in terms of, versatility offensively and defensively, players that can play multiple positions and have multiple skill sets. And then obviously, Liz being the biggest name and literally the biggest player, her addition also changed what our needs would be night in and night out to be effective. When you have a more traditional center in terms of size, the type of things you need to be able to do. We tried to put together a roster that would complement, Liz up front. And then obviously with Jordan and Kennedy's speed up at the top of the floor, being able to stretch the floor, provide a little bit more floor spacing, but also, again, defensively, not losing sight of that end, be able to guard multiple teams based on the different lineups that they may throw at us. So we felt like we did the best job that we could in making some of these decisions. And, we won't know how it works out until we get to a certain point in this season.
Great. We'll go next question to Miriam Swanson from the LA Daily News.
Hey, Coach Fisher. I just wanted to ask sort of like the decisions you made as far as, Taya and Arella and then how it's going to work out with Amanda going forward and kind of speak to that. And also the other day, Shanae brought up an idea about a G League for the WNBA, and just wondering how much that would appeal to you, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the personnel decisions are never, easy ones. And I think for, myself personally, the amount of time that, we spend with our players and around our players, like you begin to care about them personally as well as professionally. And you never take a decision lightly that you may have to make professionally. Doesn't separate how it may feel to me personally or to that player personally. So, decisions to to go in a different direction in terms of Taya and Arella were not easy, but we felt like it was best for the team in terms of what we were going to need in order to be most successful to start this season and hopefully throughout this season, but not an indication of Taya and Arella's abilities or whether or not they can play in this league. I think they both have shown that they're capable of it. And, maybe there's some other opportunities out there for them in short order. With Amanda, really difficult decision there as well. For me, wearing two hats, there's a coach hat and there's a general manager hat, and trying to balance each of those things, they don't always align. But we felt like with the roster that, we put together in the offseason and the commitment that we tried to make to having a 12-woman roster and in a condensed season with the FIBA World Cup at the end, it was just going to be really difficult to start our season, with not having the bulk of our roster really here and present and ready to go, and not because of they're on vacation, right? We understand that it's not necessarily always a choice, and whether players are competing overseas, et cetera. But it was a difficult decision, but we were kind of we didn't feel like we could take the risk that the date of arrival would line up with where we would be in the season, and in this short season with any player that's going to miss a possible double-digit number of games, it just, last year with our experiences with Maria, it just kind of, we felt like it wasn't fair to the rest of the players, even though we know that this would be really difficult, specifically related to Amanda. And, that's where the human part of this business, it does kind of suck. It kind of then goes into maybe the G League part of the question. Because it would be nice to have more time with our players, or in situations like this, if we could bring up, right, a developmental player or two that can hold the fort down while the more veteran player is overseas, playing and competing. I don't think there are any immediate solves to this. We're going to find out next year with WNBA prioritization kicking in 2023, and then in 2024, that line gets drawn officially. So we're going to start to see that transition in that phase. But right now, the teams have to make the choices, and I realize that I'm not going to always make the right choice as far as the player individually is concerned. I care about our players personally and professionally, but I get paid to do a job that is best for the Los Angeles Sparks organization as a whole, even if I personally don't like the decision I have to make, and that just comes with the job.
We'll go next question to Rashawn Haylock from KTLA.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Rashawn.
Wondering, how did last season's off season and getting into the season last year, how did that kind of help or shape you as it related to, putting these pieces together heading into this 2022 campaign?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I think we all learn from our experiences, and like I said, I think last year we going into training camp and coming out of camp, we felt like we had added some players that brought a level of versatility and speed, to our game that we maybe didn't have in 2019 and 2020. And before the season could even get going real good, we lost a number of players to injury and just never really got our footing. And even with all of that, we were, one game from still having a chance to play in the postseason. And so, this year we just felt that, again, it would be vitally important to try and build a roster that could fit 12 players. Last season taught us that whether you have players arriving late from overseas, or you have injury situations, or you have to make a difficult decision on full season suspension compared to partial season suspension, going through what we went through last year and seeing the way our players, suffered under the burden of carrying, 8 to 9 players carrying the responsibility that 12 players should be able to carry. We just didn't want to do that to, our players again. And we tried to think about that in the offseason, like just through some of the conversations in free agency, sharing that vision of being able to have 12 players and in a condensed season. And, when we know our opponents are only going to be able to carry 11 most nights, a lot of our players in free agency bought into that idea and agreed to sign contracts at values that allowed us to fit 12. And so we didn't want to move too far away from that in some of the roster decisions that we made throughout training camp.
We'll go next question to Sabrina Merchant. Sabrina, go ahead.
Hey, Derek.
Hi,
Just
Sabrina.
getting back to Amanda for a second, how much of that decision to suspend her for the full season, like how much did it help to have Olivia available, to fill in at that extra big spot? And what have you seen from her and even Amy and Lexie in training camp that allowed them to stick around?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we may not have even drafted Olivia if the circumstances were different with, we knew Lauren Cox was going to be, late to training camp. We knew we weren't going to see Amanda potentially until maybe mid-June, depending on, when the season ended in EuroLeague. And then there were some visa things that we were managing that just comes, as a part of international players. We had some similar challenges with Liz's visa that we were able to get cleaned up, before the season started. But just with COVID and the pandemic, the issues around the world with U.S. consulates and embassies, it's really put a high burden on players and agents and teams trying to get the visa stuff done on top of, fitting the WNBA calendar. So I don't know if we even draft Olivia if we know Amanda was going to be here sooner, or we knew that, we liked what Lauren Cox brought to us, just by showing up off the street last year and doing a lot of good things. We wanted to see her in training camp this year. And just not getting those chances, we knew we had to provide a little bit of insurance with Olivia in the draft. We also knew Cheney's coming back off of injury and wanted to protect her. We knew that NECA's had, injuries in the past. We know that Liz is 30 years old and moving over 30, not less than 30. And we just didn't think it was fair to those veteran players to not add some front court support by drafting Olivia. And, she's, I think, proven that, she probably is here to stay. I mean, she does a lot of really high level things as a basketball player. She's smart, she's high character, high integrity. And, that's the type of players and people that we want to build with. So it's kind of the give and take of sports in some ways. A player shows up that you don't even know what you're going to get, and they end up becoming a part of the plan. And I think when you put it all together, it all kind of again factored into some of the decisions we made around our 12-player roster.
Just to follow up on that real quick, with the guard decision, you had to waive Taya and Arella. Just curious what you saw out of Amy and Lexie Brown that made you want to keep them around.
Yeah, I mean, I think, with our struggles offensively just over the last couple of years, not even just thinking about just 2 weeks of training camp, we honestly haven't had a high number of players that are, other than Raquana Williams, Sydney Weiss to some degree, like just an all-out comfort level and confidence of catching and shooting the ball from behind the three without thinking. We've had more mid-range players that like to get downhill to the rim. And we really felt that it was important and vital considering where NECA is in her career, we need to be making the game easier for her, not harder. So more floor spacing for NECA to be able to operate. And then when you put Liz next to NECA, you have to maximize floor spacing and perimeter shooting. So the decision to, I wanted to coach Gabby Williams. The decision that went into trading her to get Katie Lou Samuelson, it all kind of fit into this idea that in order for us to be more efficient offensively, we need players that are comfortable catching and shooting the basketball with no hesitation. And we feel like that'll help us overall. We'll see, right? It doesn't guarantee us anything. We're still going to have to cut hard. We're still going to have to pass the ball well, set good screens. We're going to have to convert at the rim. We have to still attack the paint, even though we're comfortable shooting the ball from the perimeter. But those are all things in terms of Amy and Lexie, just based on the offseason we had. And then you throw Jordan and Chennedy into that mix, right? And Brittany Sykes, like players that are really great getting downhill and playing in lanes. We just had to put the team together in a way that we thought would be most effective.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for a couple more. We'll go to Howard Megdal next. Howard, go ahead.
Hey, Derek, thanks for the time as always.
Howard, thank you.
You touched on Chiney, but I'd like to explore her role a little more if we could, in two ways. First, just in terms of where she fits, do you see her as somebody, she has expanded her shooting, who's going to spell NECA at times next to Liz? Is she somebody who's a third big, who gives Liz some time to rest? If you take me through that, and then just in terms of the larger project that is Chiney, just somebody who is working at ESPN, somebody who's connecting these worlds. I'm wondering if you could take through the value of that and the part that plays in having her on the roster as a bridge to other players who are doing the same thing.
Yeah. No, I think, first, like Chiney gives us like what we're really looking forward to is being able to play Chiney with NECA, with Liz, with Jasmine Walker, with Katie Lou Samuelson, with Ray Burrell. Like we believe that we can do whatever the game requires. And Chiney's defense and rebounding has always been elite. And we're better with her on the floor on that end. Offensively, Chiney is a better catch and shoot, perimeter shooting player than most people think. It has not been a big part of her game historically, but it is something that we want her to explore more, to feel more confident and comfortable catching and shooting the ball, whether from the elbows, even behind the three-point line. She has a great shot mechanically, and it goes in a lot when she just catches it and shoots it in flow and in rhythm. So we're viewing being able to utilize, NECA, Chiney, and Liz to really always have a level of physicality and size and toughness on the court up front, but then also being able to move them around based on matchups. And, whichever one has the favorable matchup that we want to put low, the other one is very comfortable facing the basket and playing in the corner or playing, swinging through her at the top of the key and really being versatile offensively. And we want Chiney to really, I think even where she is physically, she looks great. She's moving well. This is the best she's been in a couple years. We don't want her to then turn that into like trying to pound and ground and, bang bodies every time down the court either. Like it's okay to allow Liz and NECA and other players to be in the paint and you take advantage of your passing and your shooting from the perimeter. In terms of what she represents, I think, as an extension of what she does on the court, I think in the WNBA, it's vital that someone continues to show, young girls of color all around the world and just, women in general that it's possible, right, to do what you love to do, but also have a passion and have something else that you love to do that you maintain and nurture. It's almost an extension of self-care. Too often we put women in a position where they have to be a great mom, but they can't be a great executive. right? And women have to make this choice. And we feel that Chiney represents this possibility that you don't have to choose between being a great this and then not having the time or the space or the bandwidth to do anything else in life. It's not always easy. It's tricky, right? Sometimes we have to have open conversation with Chiney about her schedule and how that's going to balance with her ability to show up for her team and her teammates, because she does love the game and she's never wanted to give the idea that basketball is not important to her. So we're just hopeful that this year represents an opportunity for her to prove that she can contribute on the court, but also like carry the water, off the court, for something that honestly is much bigger than basketball. And while we're trying to grow the WNBA, the more people that know our players, the better. I don't care where they know them from or where they see them. The more they know who they are and recognize them and care about what they're doing, it's better for the W.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go last question to Mike Trudell. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Fish, just curious, with all of the roster turnover and just the condensed camp, how are you approaching these first couple of games, and specifically Chicago, but what have you been able to get done this week, and what are a couple of things that you're looking for?
Yeah, it's been for sure, the anxiety's been high this week. Yeah, I feel really, it's difficult for our players to think about, preparing for the season and, thinking about these bigger picture things when they don't even know if they're going to be here past a certain day. So, we today was almost like a reset in a sense of like, this is the first time, the players that are kind of going to be a part of our roster going into the season are the only ones here. And so, being able to turn our focus to the season and to Chicago and getting this trip started off the right way. A lot of new personalities and skill sets to find balance for, minute distribution, various lineups when we can play Nneka and Liz together, when we need to separate them and get Jasmine Walker into the game, or, getting Chiney in the game and how we move those things around to give us a chance to be successful on the court and, finding a lineup that can be good offensively, but also we can still get stops and rebound and be disruptive on the defensive end. So opening up on the road in Chicago, like, we're excited. We're looking forward to the challenge. And we want to win. Like, we're definitely not, starting the season, just thinking that we have time to figure it out. The WNBA really doesn't allow for that. The competition is so well stacked and there's so much parity that every game that you can try to figure out how to win, you have to do it. And so even with 10 players and none of them really ever having played that much basketball together, we're going to go out and figure out, how to position ourselves to maybe try and win a game on the road. And, we're thankful, we're grateful for this opportunity, and we're going to try and go make the most of it.
Great. That'll be it for Coach Fisher today. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Derek Fisher's Los Angeles Sparks are underdogs by 3.5 tonight. I know that because of betonline.net. BetOnline, your number one source for all betting stats and sports info. All of it. All of it. Not just men's sports. Indiana Fever, underdogs by 9 against Washington. Minnesota Lynx, underdogs by 9.5 at Seattle. Now that's interesting. Las Vegas Aces, favored by 4.5, at Phoenix. We know all this because of BetOnline, which had NCAA women's basketball odds, has WNBA odds. Whether you bet or not is immaterial, right? Having that equality matters when we're trying to eliminate those gaps. So go to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the women's game starts too. So it's interesting, right? 3.5 points in Chicago against the defending champs with Candace Parker on hand, with Courtney Vandersloot on hand. Should be a tough game. But we're going to learn some things early on. We got to find out things like, how does Chennedy Carter run that offense? How effective is Liz there? What do Nneka and Shanae do next to her? How for real is Jasmine Walker? There are a lot of questions to answer, but they're the type of questions you want to set about answering for a WNBA season. There's not a real sense that there's not enough there. It really comes down to, what does Derek Fisher do? I am fascinated. I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to see all of it. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Now, this is a crazy thing. Derek Fisher is the coach now. He actually played in a different league called the NBA. And so you should make your second listen Locked On NBA. From the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals, a place, by the way, Derek Fisher has also been, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting, I'm guessing they have 12 teams, because that's what the NBA has, what? 30 teams. And we cover all 30 at Locked On NBA. Just like someday, there'll be 30 in the WNBA, and we'll cover them all too. So again, we're your first listen. Well done. Locked On NBA. Make you your second listen. I hope you had as wonderful a week as we did. Make sure you're going to thenexthoops.com, checking out all the work we've done. All 12 WNBA previews. I'm recording this. I'm putting up M. Adler's Seattle Storm preview, which is crazy good. There's predictions. There's just day-to-day stories. And our people are fanned out all over the league across the weekend. You know what they're going to do after they do that reporting? Then they're come on back next week, and they're going to talk to you about it here at Locked On Women's Basketball. I am Howard Megdal. Happy WNBA first weekend, everybody.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.